Hey, Molly.
Hey, Rabbi, how are you?
I'm great.
Sunny.
Sunny.
Well, I'm thrilled to have Rabbi Carolyn Braun with us today. We've been really looking forward to this conversation. Rabbi Braun's the spiritual leader of Temple Bethel, the conservative synagogue here in Portland, where she's served since 1994, I believe. Pretty
December. So
amazing.
that's almost 1995.
So how many years is that, Rabbi?
I think it's 26.
It's exciting. I love to talk a little bit about your background and then cover some more topical issues that people are bringing to the table these days. If you want to just share how you decided to come to Portland in the first place.
So I never wanted to be a pulpit rabbi. I was going to work for Hillel, which I did when I was before I went to rabbinical school and during rabbinical school. And I worked worked at hospitals and at federal prisons and did all sorts of things that was not going to be in the pulpit. And my first job was at Mount Holyoke as the Jewish chaplain there. And when I read my tea leaves pretty well that they couldn't really afford chaplains there. And so I wondered where I would want to possibly go next. And when I was in college as an undergraduate, my best friend lived on the West End of Portland. And I spent a summer with her. And in fact, it became the house that the Valine Tagersell and Robert Levine lived in.
No kidding.
And in fact, I ended up buying their house, which is where I live now.
Wow.
So weird. But so I knew about Portland and the congregation opened up. And I thought, I'll give it a try. And so I did.
So you were among the first female rabbis. You were in the first class, I believe, at JTS that ordained women. Is that right?
I was in the first class. And I always like to say that I would have been the third ordained rabbi. It went alphabetically. But my friend, whose last name was Friedgood, married someone whose last name was August. And A took over for B. So I got pushed to the fourth position.
That's a big deal. And I know when you were hired here, it was a big deal. What was the experience like for you as a student and also thinking about taking on this leadership role in a new way for this community?
I mean, it wasn't easy. And I think that we were very driven. I'd wanted to be a rabbi since I was 10 years old. I didn't come from an observant religious home at all. But I don't know, I got the bug or something. And that's another long story and entertaining. But so I started actually at the seminary before they allowed women into rabbinical school. In fact, I had spoken about where I might go for rabbinical school and decided that I just really wanted to be in the conservative movement. And so I spent a year in Israel and then 2 years getting a master's degree. And that was I finished that up in 1984. And that was the year they opened rabbinical school to women. So I was sort of involved in that breaking open the walls time. And then the time in the seminary. And it was really hard. I think if you ask any LGBT people who have been in that kind of situation, any Jews of color, I mean, it's really hard, but you're very driven. And it really was slogging through many, many, many classes. I mean, didn't have a lot of time to think of things, but they made me the gabbai of the first egalitarian minyan that met at the seminary. So I was the one who had to get the people who would lead services and read Torah, and it was so frightening. But I had a really wonderful advisor, and so it was pretty. I never put myself. I never dove in there. I was too scared.
And when you got to Portland too, I mean, now we're very used to the idea that there are rabbis with all kinds of different identities, but that was not the case for you when you were first here. How was that process?
I don't know if any of us were aware of the subtleties. And it was also a very difficult process. It wasn't, I mean, there's a lot of, I love Portland. I love the community. But Portland can be a very hard place to come into as an outsider to begin with. And then when one follows a rabbi who's been there for 30 years or however many years Rabbi Sky was there, and then a woman, and then a short woman, so you don't have that stature. None of us were prepared, I think.
Sometimes that leads to really amazing things, though. You try things that you didn't think you could because you didn't know you were trying them. I mean, I think the transformation that happened here through your leadership is really significant.
Well, that's very sweet to say. 'Cause sometimes you're just so much in the weeds, one does not notice what is happening really on the great outside. But I think that I wished that the movement had prepared congregations, and I wish the movement had prepared us. And I think that there was a lot of gnashing of teeth. There was a lot of, it was hard work to break through both. Well, for a million reasons, but one of them being a woman, and one of them being young.
Sure.
And I think the seminary made the mistake, which is why I've really supported any sort of new things that happen with the conservative movement, is that they made the mistake of saying, well, we let you in, now go.
Right. It'll be fine. Yeah.
You'll work it out.
Right.
Or it's not our problem, that's your problem. And I think, how many years later? I graduated in 1988. So all these years later, I think they're coming around and doing some pretty amazing things, but it took them a long time. And I have to hand it to those people who put their trust in me, who said, no, we're going to hire this person, because that really, and I don't think I understood it that much at the time, but I look back at it now and say they were taking a big step.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think Portland in a funny way always has this ability to really think outside the box and do, but people will tell you, well, it's quiet and it's, reserved, but in the end, a lot gets done and a lot moves. So
true. It's true.
You alluded to the story of how you, as a child, wanted to be a rabbi. And I love this story because I think often people assume that rabbis come from very devout households, really traditional environments. And that's not the case for you. You ended up taking this on as a really internal individual commitment. Can you talk a little bit about that piece?
Yeah, I have this friend who used to be a priest. He left for very good reasons. And he called it grace. The Christians call this grace, which is that something happens and there's kind of no reason for it. There's some sort of holy thing that happens. And I don't know. I don't know what gave me the bug, but my parents thought that religion, and I think they're right in a way, but my parents said that religion was the opiate of the masses. Which is maybe why I am the kind of rabbi I am. I understand both sides of the equation. And I would do things like on Friday night, I would go up into my bedroom and light candles, learn the blessing and light candles. And then, if it got too obvious to my parents, I'd blow them out. But that was no big deal because it was the 60s. So everybody lit candles and incense.
And right.
So I just didn't want them to know that they were Shabbat candles, but otherwise, and I just have always had, and I wish I could instill it in people who want it. I just have this very comfortable relationship with God, and it's kind of always been that way. Maybe because my parents thought it was crazy. So, you always want to do something your parents.
Little rebellious. Yeah.
They thought it was a phase that I was going to get over. I actually remember announcing to them when I was a senior in college, and the seminary wasn't open to women yet, but I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And I remember saying to them, you know what, I figured out what I want to do. I want to be a rabbi. And I remember my mom going, Bob, listen to this. She wants to be a rabbi. But no, I just really have this very comfortable feeling around God and ritual and Judaism and other religions too. I mean, I don't feel superior in any way, shape, or form, but it just feels right.
Well,
Grace.
I think that there's a piece of that creates a lot of spaciousness for people to bring whatever they're feeling to the table. We've definitely seen a lot of changes in religiosity over time, both here in Portland and also nationwide. It seems like there's almost sort of opposing elements to this, where people are looking for ways to connect and ways to plug in and be comforted and be in community, and at the same time not always going to religious services or having the same kind of religious connections that they used to. How do you think about creating spaces that, allow for people to show up wherever they are, but still move Jewish life forward?
Yeah, so so one of the things that I think I have is this sympathy for what it feels like to feel stupid in the religious atmosphere. Because, as women, we didn't really participate. And I knew a lot of people who went to day school and had sort of a background, and I didn't. So I have, there's that part. I think I've really taught myself in some ways, maybe as being a woman and having that tension all the time. So I really try to figure out what it must be like for the other person. That's one of the reasons why I wish I could just hand people my bug and say, gee, this was pretty satisfying for me. But
Right.
but not everybody. It took me a long time to realize that not that long, but a lot of people aren't shul goers, and I don't really enjoy Chinese opera, so it's
Something for everybody. Yeah.
there's something for everybody, and I think that the divinity, the thing that I call God, um, is as broad as each person is. So it's not hard to make space for that, because basically my work is to just help people get to where they probably want to be, without forcing them or shaming them or judging them if a person Shabbat is going out and serving food at Preble Street before COVID, what a wonderful way to engage spiritually. Now, do I wish more people came to synagogue? Of course I do.
Well, what are the trends that you're seeing? I know we've had a lot of people moving to the area in the last 10 years from away. I've heard great things about the board of Bethel being really vital and active, and lots of young people joining. What kinds of changes do you see that you're excited about? What kinds of things are you more concerned by?
Well, times are weird right now. I mean, that's a no duh statement, but we've never been here before, ever. And so I was extremely worried that what would we do after when we closed down the building? And even though I've always thought that things should happen outside of the building also, but I really wondered what was going to happen. At the very beginning, there was a lot more participation than we'd had even before, because people were reaching out and wanted to be together, even if it were Zoom. I resisted Zoom for a long time, maybe a month. And then I said, nah, I can't do this to my community or to myself. I really have to reach out in some way or another. And so in some ways, and I think that has diminished somewhat now. There, where there used to be 20 people at Morning Minyan, there are 10 or so, and we only have. I tried to do some Friday night things, and it seemed like people weren't really into that all the time. But my Saturday morning crew really wanted to meet. So, what rabbi says, no, we can't meet.
Right.
So that's an ongoing thing, and then it's really kind of hustling to. I'm sure you guys did the same thing. What can we offer? And I think what I've found, what this time has really done for me, is broaden my mind a lot. Is close to what you said asked at the beginning about, how do you make that space? Well, there are so many ways right now to make the space. And I've been taking online classes that I really enjoy. I haven't ever had time to learn
That's
and
great.
study. And now I have a little bit of time to do that. But what it's going to be like when we begin again, I give that a lot of thought. And I suspect next high holidays are going to rock.
Yeah.
They pretty much rocked this year too, but in a different way. And I think we've learned how to meet people more where they are than where the institution is.
Yeah. I know a lot of people are talking about accessibility in new ways, that, assuming that it's always great to be in person was just our default, but, what could we do to sometimes do things still on Zoom or both, a mix of in person and online.
Yeah, there have been a number of people who have asked about taking Judaism for the curious, kind of a conversion kind of classes, although, I always call it just basic Judaism. But, I'm starting up a class. There must be 10 or 15 people that are interested. So we'll see where that goes. And a lot of them are people who have, a lot of them are people who have made a change. They've moved up here from somewhere. And I think they kind of say, now's the time. If I'm going to do this, now would be a good time.
That's great. I mean, this idea of a moment when there's more creativity or more openness to trying things is not a bad thing. It's hard that it's had to happen in such a traumatic way for all of us. But Rabbi, I know you've been involved in the community in lots of ways, and you talked about, maybe some people feel working at Preble or volunteering at Preble Street is a way to give back. I know you give back in lots of ways. You've been affiliated with United Way as the board member, and Maine Medical Center and Waynfleet, and all kinds of different service activities. What are you doing these days, or what issues are you really engaging in right now?
Well, so when the lockdown came around, and of course there was politics that were out there as well, even before. At first, I started to feel very overwhelmed. Like, where I can't even figure out how to use my computer, much less what am I going to do? But now's the time. We have to be helping each other. We have to be doing this. And I really, I found myself in the midst of a whirlwind or something. And so I made the conscious step to sort of step back. Where am I part of the problem? Where am I part of the solution? Where are we part of the problem? Where are we part of the solution? And I really stepped back. And what I've been working on a lot right now is really inclusivity in the synagogue. So racial justice, social justice, LGBT, Keshet groups. I mean, it was all stuff that was there, but now I have some time to sit down. We all have some time to sit down and really kind of make some statements and make some policies. And who are we? Who am I? And what is going to be my part as soon as I can, as soon as I'm let out onto the track, It just seems like it's a time to look inward and outward, as opposed to before when we were running around, it was like only looking outward. If I were to make a list of what has gone well, I think people have become incredibly creative. And I love these outside that, normally we'd go, oh my gosh, it's 40 degrees out. I'm not going outside. And now we're being uncomfortable so that we can be with our friends. And that is to me, that's sort of a spiritual act also.
It's true. I know you have Shabbat B'chutz, these walks that people take to. I mean, there's so much creativity about how to observe and how to make the day a little bit different on Shabbat, for example. You've been doing outdoor Havdalah, is that right? The last couple of weeks?
No, we're starting it. Hardy Mater.
Oh,
Hardy Mater Havdalah. We did something. What did we do outside? Yeah, it was the menorah, the Chanukiah lighting. And that was really fun. We have that, and we have that great new area now too.
It's beautiful.
It's amazing.
And what a blessing at this time too. It's just perfect.
No, I was talking to somebody whose wedding had to be postponed last year, and we were talking about what to do this year. And I said, "Hey, you could be the first wedding
Oh,
in the
that's so
Susan
great.
P. Goldberg garden. It'd be great."
Well, Rabbi, I've asked people to share, just because this is still a hard time for a lot of folks. And as you mentioned, this week in particular has been so intense for people, and last week too. Where do you turn for comfort? What are you finding helps you?
You ask a very good question. In fact, I'm working on something now for the statewide Havdalah for that's happening next Saturday night. And also last night I just took a class in it's about finding resiliency in texts.
Mm.
And I sort of think this is a hallmark of conservative Judaism, but it might be of everything else too, is that we live in the gray area. We don't live in it's just this way or it's just that way. It's like, well, it's this way, it's that way, and can't be both, so it's that way too. I mean, we really live in this gray area. So there's, I don't know, I was just studying this at the beginning of Havdalah. It says, Hinei el Yeshua tiaftach v'lo echad. Behold, God is my salvation. God is my redemption. I won't be afraid. And so, like, on the one hand, when I'm not being practical, I'm just being spiritual. This idea that, the earth has been here for a long, long time. And, we may be shortening the amount of time that the earth is going to be here, but it is much stronger than we are. Mm. And somewhere, I believe there is, it's one of the reasons I feel a good relationship with God, because there are things that I just have to give up. I have to act as though it all relies. What is that thing? Act as though it all depends on you, but pray as though it all depends on God. Right. So one of the things that gives me strength and whatever is that I know that we will endure. Another piece is the amount of involvement. A lot of people, there are more people voting than ever. There's a lot of work at it. There was, some good things have been happening. The protests, the BLM protests, and we're noticing racism now. For those of us who are in privileged positions, I think we always did, but in a different way. And I think that in leaps and bounds, we're actually becoming more enlightened. And honestly, this is going to sound patronizing, but I so don't mean it this way. I think I look to the younger generation, and I look to my younger colleagues even, who are doing incredible things that I would never, ever think of. But I'm so thrilled they're doing it, because then I'll take their ideas. But there is collaboration happening that never happened before. There is there are relationships that are happening that never happened before. And so I really believe that we will endure, and maybe we'll even bend that arc of justice a little bit more.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. I've been really looking forward to this. It was great to have you and to chat.
Yes, it's really, really fun. Thank you. I hope I didn't talk too much.
You're perfect. You're amazing. Thank you so much, Rabbi.
Thank you.
J-Talks is a project of the Jewish Community Alliance of Southern Maine and is produced by Sarah Halley Richardson. If you are interested in being featured, learning more about the program, or providing support, please feel free to contact us or visit our website at www.mainejewish.org.